Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to our third webinar from the series Project Management for Educators. Today we have a very senior person with us who is well experienced into the domain of project management. He has been the former vice president of the Project Management Institute, and today he would be covering the topic applying project management strategies in a curriculum design and development project in higher education institutions. So so yes, his name is Mr. Ahmed Ashfaq, and you can start the session. I'll just share the presentation.
Share the presentation. Yes. Thank you so much, Nazim. Thank you, everybody, and a warm welcome from the team. And I really appreciate your dedication and commitment on a Saturday morning to wake up and log in and try to learn something. So this is really very good and appreciated. This learning and teaching, these are things that should go on till we are on. Because without learning, you cannot say that I have finished learning. At the same time, you cannot say I've finished teaching as well. So you keep learning, keep teaching, keep learning, keep teaching, and that is how the cycle goes on. And I'm sure most of you will agree with me on that. Okay, going to the presentation, we have. Um, can go to the next slide, please. Okay, a little about myself without spending much time. I'm into the industry since 1996, and I've been into project management for quite some time, doing development work, project management for service delivery, and majority of my experiences with respect to airlines. I've been managing airline domain projects, and I'm currently working with Hexaware Technologies, and I'm also associate with the PMI Mumbai chapter. I was the vice president of PMI Mumbai chapter. PMI is an institute which gives project management certification. So, so project management, there are many other institutes, but PMI is the one which has been there for more than 50 years now. It completed 50 years in 2019. So there are other organizations now. Now there are Agile. So PMI has taken up Agile. So all members who are more interested, maybe they can go to pmi.org and see what is the next thing that is available with respect to project management. Right. So this in the now can go to the next one, please. Yeah. So the agenda for today. So we will try to cover up in the limited time that we have a small introduction to project management. I'll try to make it more interactive, virtually interactive. For example, we can share the comments on the chat, and we will. I'll try to cover up or touch upon some of these project management aspects that we have. We have multiple knowledge areas which cannot be covered in the limited time. So we will. I'll touch upon, basically touch upon, and try to share some examples which will help us understand these topics better. Now, going to introduction of project management. Can go to the next one, please. The next one is what is project management. Now, without spending a lot of time, if the audience can just pitch in the answers on the chat box, that would really help. We have This is the third session, as we know, and if there is something that you have already learned and remembered, this will also help you revise and also let the other rest of the crowd know. People who have not attended in the past two sessions will also get to know what exactly is the understanding of project management. So what is project management? How and why and how project management is beneficial? Just give me a second. I'll just take this. Hello. हाँ. क्रू पास चल रहा था, मैंने चेक करा कि विश्वजीत को बोला था तभी. अब ठीक है, मैं अविनाश से बात करता हूँ. मैं एक बाहर आया हूँ. हाँ, मैं अविनाश को बोलता हूँ, चेक करके बताएगा. हाँ, ठीक है. Okay, how is it up? So what are the I didn't get any answers. So if you could push in some more answers saying that what is project management? What is our understanding of project management? Without making it too elaborative, a group of people achieving a common goal. Okay, good. What are you losing without project management? Okay, can we go to the next slide, Nazim? Yeah, this is a quick snapshot about with project management and without project management. Without spending a lot of time, it's an unsynchronized effort. So there are not a group of people maybe, but without a common objective. On the right hand side, we see group of people with a common objective, optimized use of resources, right? And then at the same time, we say that okay, काम बढ़िया हुआ है, अच्छा काम किया है. So अच्छा काम के लिए you have to do good planning. On the next slide, I'm showing you what are the skills that are, yeah, that's okay. Go to the next one, please. What are the skills that are required for project management? And these are skills that we already have, and these are skills that we already use on a day-to-day basis. But if we could put all the beads together, it becomes a necklace. Otherwise, the beads are just beads lying all around. So what we are trying to do is trying to put all those skills that we have into practice. Like for example, here we are saying communication, managing people, negotiation, right? Budgeting, leadership skills, right? Planning, organizing activities, monitoring, tracking, problem solving. If there is a hurdle, if there is a showstopper, then how do we resolve it? So these are some of the skills that we already have. How do we put these together to make sure that we make it something which is effective for us on a day-to-day basis? Next, please. This is the cycle of project life cycle. Now, I will try and make an attempt to explain this in a very simple example without spending more than a minute. If I spend, I'll switch this slide in 1 minute. Now, I was just thinking about this, and I thought a good example for us to remember this would be driving. Most of us drive on a day-to-day basis, right? But the driving, I want to give it an analogy of project management. When we start driving, if you could just imagine what we do, we go and start our car, get it out of the parking space, right? And then by then we have already decided where do we want to go. We get out of our get to the main road, then we know whether we want to go right, which direction we want to go, we want to go left. So that is what we have already decided. So that part of the planning is already done. You know what time it is, and you know which route will have less traffic. So that is already done. That's already been a part of the planning. You know what are the things that you have to carry. You know, you where do you need to know how much petrol or fuel you need to have in your car. That again becomes planning. Then you start executing in the sense you start riding driving your car. And then on the way you do monitoring and tracking. Monitoring and tracking in the sense you see right, you see left, you look at the mirror, you watch the signals, you see all warning signs, you make corrections, you change lanes if required, you control yourself, and at the end you reach your destination. At the destination, you what do? You just park your car, put it in the gear or in the keep it in gear or put it in the handbrake, and then come out. So this entire cycle is can easily be interpreted with how we are doing. Initiation is when we are starting our car. Planning is when you have already planned where you want to go, how much time you will take, where will you do, what will you do when you reach there. Then you start driving your car, go from one place to another. Then on the way you monitor and track. You cannot say I'll do monitoring and tracking at the end. Then you will end up dashing somebody else. So monitoring and tracking is a continuous process. And then when you have reached your destination, you park your car. So remember this five phases: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and tracking, and closing. Okay. So without spending more time on this, I'll go to the next one. Yeah, this the PMI. This is a slide from the PMI, and these are the different knowledge areas that are applicable for project management. So the 50-year-old organization, they have put in all this in place, saying that these are the five things for each of those phases that we need to do. For initiation, what is important is developing a project charter, identifying stakeholders. For planning, there are so many roles that we need to: project integration, project scope management, schedule management, cost management, quality management, resource management, communication management, at risk management. So these are all things that have already been defined in a project management guide, saying that these are the things that needs to be done. Then execution, the phase, whatever you have planned, you have to start executing now. Once you have started executing, you cannot do without monitoring and tracking. So for each of these key KPAs, key areas, you have to have a monitoring in place. And once you have done that, Then we get to the project closure, where everything that you have identified during this initiation of project charter is supposed to be closed. Can we go to the next one, please? Next one, Nazir bhai. Yeah, this is a quick slide where we are saying that when we start a project, what we do is we say that the initiation takes because the risk of failure are high when the project in the beginning of the project. But as we progress, as we see that the project planning and execution and monitoring is happening regularly, then we see that the risk has reduced. So in the beginning of the project, the risks are high. The initiation phase is a phase where we have to spend time. Planning is a huge phase. We have to start planning, and planning is not a one-time activity. You have to keep revising your plan going forward. Execution of the process, entire process. Execution is low at the beginning, but high in the at the end of the, because that is where the project gets executed. Monitoring and tracking is a regular activity. Closure is another phase which is at the end, and a smaller phase where all the deliverables are sent across, they are approved or acknowledged by the stakeholders, and then the project is closed. Next one, please. Nasim bhai, can we have a few slides on that? Three slides from the quiz, please.
Sure, I will do that.
Yeah,
So
just a quick.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
I'm running the first poll. I request everyone to please participate in this. Yeah. So the question is, project management is more applicable for professional activity, personal activity, all of the above, none of the above. I'll wait for another 10 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm ending the poll. So this is the result.
Okay. Good. Good. So project management is uh, not only for professional activity but also for personal activities. So the answer is all of the above. In fact, in the last two session we also mentioned that anything that you do is a project. And what is the definition of project? Is anything that has a defined start date, a defined end date, and it's a temporary endeavor. We know that it's going to get over. So, and anything, if you for people who have mentioned it as only professional activity, no. Going from one place to another is also a project. Preparing a dish is also a project. Doing a course is also a project. Or any activity that you do, that is also considered. For example, going from one place to another. Why is it called a project? Because before you start, or in fact the previous night itself, you have to decide how you are going to go there. What time are you going to leave? How are you going to reach there? What are the things that you need to carry? If it is a rainy season, then you have to remember to carry an umbrella. If it is a you have to dress appropriately. What time, how much time will you take to reach there? How do you make sure that you reach there before time? How do you make sure that the other stakeholders are also aware of it? How do you communicate that? How do you make sure that the vehicle or the Ola Uber that you want to take are available on that day? How do you identify that the routes? So we just get up, wake up one fine day and then start moving. That's not what we do. But if you want to plan it in such a way so that when we decide that this is the activity we want to do, going from, in fact, for many of us, going to office becomes a project. कहाँ से जाना है, कैसे जाना है, किधर से जाना है, कौन सा रूट लेना है, कितने बजे निकलना है, कितने बजे पहुंचना है. All this includes project. So if we manage, we do this regularly. अरे yesterday I took that route and it took more time. there is some road construction going on. So today I'll go from another route. So what are we doing here? We are learning for our past project, yesterday's project, and and improving our current project. Right? The traffic signal is very huge. There on maybe on some day of the week, there is more traffic there. So that day we do take some other route. Right? So these are things that we are using on a regular basis. We use historical data for our day to day basis. अरे उधर से नहीं जाओ, उसमें बहुत ट्रैफिक होगा, take another route. This is a longer route, but at least you will reach your destination on time, right? So these are activities that we do on a regular basis, but we don't consider them as a project. Okay, coming to this project management module. So there are around 10 modules that I have mentioned here. We'll not be able to cover all of them, but I'll touch upon some of those modules that we want to talk about. Nazim, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, I'm in the next rest of the presentation. We will focus on this with respect to creating a course curriculum. How do we apply project management on creating a course curriculum? Now, the first thing that we do in a course, in any project, is to identify there has to be a requirement, right? A requirement in the sense, why is it required? Is it a business required? Is it something that is budgeted for? Is it a stakeholder requirement? Is it a part of some other project which was already been executed earlier? So all this comes into play when we are deciding the scope, and all this are a part of the project charter. Now here, when we are taking an example of a curriculum design, so these are some of the things which come in as a requirement. Like, I want to create a course. Now I need to know how many modules that I need to make, right? You would, all of you who are designing course would have more inputs, better input than what I have, but these are some of the input that I collected for. Course objective, what would be the course objective? What is the course outcome expected? Duration of the course, it might not be a 1 year course, it might not be a 2 week course, or maybe it could be. Then you have to plan it accordingly. Number of sessions that you want to do you want to do 10 session, 20 session? You also want to identify who is the audience. Is it somebody who's from school or college, people who can absorb? What is the prerequisite? Is there a module which is there before this which they have to do? What semester this is supposed to be prepared for? Is it a theory session? Is it a practical session? Right? If it is a practical session, then how do we make sure that the course and the practical go hand in hand? If I'm completing one module, then can I give a practical on that same module? Right? So these are questions that we normally ask while preparing a course. Can we go to the next one, please? Yeah, I don't have to explain this, right? All of you know what is Bloom's taxonomy. So this is just a slide for reference. Yeah, but this is what I know. Curriculum designers are using it on a more popular ones. Yeah. Go to the next ones, please. Yeah. So you when you start, oh, click again. Okay, okay. Click, please. I think that box got disappeared. Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, so project charter. I'll not spend a lot of time here because we have already discussed this multiple times in the previous session. So when we start a project, the project charter, even though we know many of those points or answers to all those questions, a project charter will help us get more details, more specific details about what exactly we want to do, something which you normally don't think about. The project, what is the purpose of the project? Who is going to drive it? What are the project objective, project descriptions? What are the risk involved? Is it funded correctly? Who are the key stakeholders? Right. So the key stakeholders are also very important. Then stakeholder man on this other side, we have stakeholder management. Who are these stakeholders and how do we identify? Because these stakeholders can make or break your project. So you have to make sure that the interests of the stakeholders are kept intact. You know who is the stakeholders whom you need to work closely with, right? So these are important part of the project initiation. Next slide, please. Here is an example of a project charter document. What are the things that you need to fill in? You can add more to this so as to capture more details about this. So here we are, project name, project description. So if you, maybe you don't have to submit this, but if you could create one for your course saying that this is a project charter that you have, you're the sponsor will be the department that you are working with, and highlight, fill in those box. If you, I think if you spend 15 minutes on this project charter, many of your unseen issues and risks will be identified here, and then you can plan those things better going forward. If then you can see that there is uh, a clear execution path. You can see the, as somebody said, begin with an end in mind, right? You can see that there could be an outcome for what you're working on. Can we go to the next one, please? Next is project planning. So after initiation comes project planning, then project execution, project monitoring and control, and project closure. So on project planning, what we see is, these are some of the modules, but I'll touch upon project scope management, schedule management, resource management, and quality management. Risk and communication was covered earlier, so I'll not touch upon them. Can you go to the next one, Nazim? Scope management, as we saw, what is the scope? So scope wise, we have to, without reading too much into this in detail, what is the scope of this requirement, right? That is important. What exactly you're supposed to do, like for example, if I take an example of renovating a flat. If you have bought a new flat and you want to renovate, you have to make sure that you get all the stakeholders in place. Now if there is a flat that you have bought, then the stakeholders are yourself, your family, your neighbors, your society, the people who are going to work there. Now if you want to renovate, you call the carpenter, you call the electrician, you call the painters, you call the furniture guy. Each of them will not take somebody else's scope. Like the carpenter will not do the mason's job. The kitchen furniture will be done. The kitchen setup will be done by the other guy. The furniture guy will not do that part. So the furniture guy will only take scope or requirements for what he's supposed to do. The electrician will only talk about points. यहाँ दो point लगा, वहाँ दो point लगा. He will not talk about the furniture. So the scope for each of them is very very guarded. This is the only thing that I am going to do, and this is the only thing that I am going to charge you for. So this scope setup is very very important. Otherwise it happens that अरे आपने बोला नहीं, आपने भी बोला नहीं था, मैंने भी बोला नहीं था, and then it becomes ambiguous and nobody does, but everybody assumes that it will be done by the other third party or the other person, and it never gets done. So listing down the scope and making sure, putting a name to each of them is very very important in scope management. For example, if you have two courses and if you have three professors, and three professors doing writing, each of them will think that the other two are working on the course material, right? And then at the end, when it comes to delivering the course, they will say, I thought the other two are working on it, and nobody will do it, right? So that is the reason it is important that you identify the course depending on their capabilities, their availability, and put a name to it. Who is going, never keep it ambiguous. Can you go to the next one? So in the scope, these are some of the highlights: product scope description, deliverables, what are the deliverable expected, what are the acceptance criteria, and what is out of scope. Out of scope is very very important to declare, because the person who has given you a project will expect that you will deliver everything. But if you're not doing something, then you have to very well highlight in the very beginning and say that this is out of scope for me. I will not be handling this. I'll not be managing this. Next, please. Yeah, this is the requirement. Where do we get the requirements from? We get it from the business, we get it from the stakeholders, we get it from the any solution requirement, past solutions. So requirements can come in from any place. Like just like I gave an example of, you have bought a flat, now you want to, maybe it's a need that you want to have a bigger flat, maybe you have fund, you want to invest it, or you want to move into a higher society, bigger society. These are some of the requirements or needs that comes up, and then you start working towards it. Page down, next one please. Okay, this is what we just discussed. So with respect to the curriculum, these are some of the points. How many sessions you want to do, what is the duration of the session, because you cannot do a topic which is just 1 hour and then uh, complete it. You need to have a weekly activity. How do you monitor and track? So these are things that needs to be thought about while you are preparing a course. And uh, and we know, and most of you have already worked on it. So I'll quickly go to the next one. Schedule management. Now this is another important activity with respect to, okay, before we go forward, just taking stock of what is happening. Are you able to follow what I'm saying? Can you just give me a thumbs up in the chat saying, okay, is it good, understood? Or do you think that I need to slow down because we have another 30 minutes to complete? So do I need to spend more slow, or can I go fast? Then we can take spend time on the question answer. Some feedback from your side would help. Okay, good. Very good. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks. It's good. Please carry on. Okay, go ahead. Okay, good. So next one, thank you so much. Thanks, audience. Next one is schedule management. Now, how do you prepare? What does project manage PMI talk about schedule management? It's a sequence. Schedule, as we know, is a sequence of work. You have to do one, two. These are the things. If we say 5 things to be done, then on your understanding, on your knowledge, your experience, these are the first thing, this is the second thing that needs to go in, or the thing that you need to put in place, right? Then you also know that how do you spend time on this, or what are the dependencies. uh, Project management also talks about a critical path. I lost the slide. Yeah, okay. It also talks about the critical path. Maybe in the next slide we will talk about what exactly is critical path. Can we go to the next one please? Yeah, critical path. It's the longest distance between the start and the finish, and including all the tasks and their duration. It's the longest this path. This is the maximum amount of time that would be required to complete this entire activity. Right? Once a critical path is determined, you have a clear picture of the project actual schedule. So your schedule of the project cannot be more than the critical path, ideally, right? Like for example, here in this example, we see that B, I, and H are on the critical path. That could be because F, G, C, and D, they are smaller activity and they can be completed earlier, whereas B, I, and H are activities which are bigger in size, and they will take more time. And there is a dependency, what we are showing with the arrow, that B has to be done before C. Now C cannot go before B is completed. After B is completed, we'll start C and D, and C and D will have more time for their execution. So if you have a resource crunch, maybe you'll have to add up a resource to work I, task I, or can add somebody to the task H. But there is a dependency between B, I, and H also. Right? So this is a critical path activity that just for our knowledge. I have a few more slides where we are talking about how the activities are completed. Maybe I'll go to the next one, please. It will help us understand a little more in detail, but provided time permits. Like for example, here we are saying task A and task B. Task A is 5 days, task B is another 5 days. And in the next one, where we are talking about lead, that we are starting task B even before task A is completed. This is called lead. Allow acceleration of the successor event, right? So, for example, if we have requirement, if we have 100 requirements we are working on, do we have to wait for all the 100 requirements to be finalized, or if the 10 requirements are already finalized, can we start doing the design, right? So these are things that a project manager needs to make decision on, because there would be a separate design team, and they are waiting for work. So can we identify when 50% of the design requirement is finalized, can we start with the design? So that way you crash the schedule. That way you make sure that your project is ready or available or execute completed within time, right? And there is another phenomena called lag, direct a delay in the successor event. If, for example, if you have identified the requirement, all the requirements from your side is finalized, but unless you get an approval from the customer, don't want to start, because you know that if the requirement is finalized and the customer comes back with change, then you will end up spending more time in doing correcting those changes, correcting those design time. So it's better to have a lag there so that you can utilize those time for some other activity. Next one, please. This is a quick step, 6-step activity. Can you go to the next slide, Nazim bhai? Yeah. Yeah, do a tap till we come to the end. Yeah. Right. So these are some of the steps for successful schedule management. I'll just read them. Prepare a schedule management plan. Define activities by decomposing the work breakdown structure. We discussed WBS in the last sessions. What exactly is WBS? We are breaking up the activity list, right? Then sequence them in such a way so that using a network diagram, and the duration is important. Build a detailed schedule using various tools. Project schedule plan. There are the Gantt chart is there. Project management tools are present which can be used. Monitor the schedule variance to ensure project is on time. So this becomes a part of the monitoring and tracking activity. For example, you have three professors and they are writing topics or course material. They are designing course material. You have to make sure that all three, or you are one of them, then make sure all of them are working in parallel. If somebody is going slow or requires help or discussion, then you do a course correction and involve people to brainstorm, identify the topics again, so as to make sure that we reach the target on time. So the target for each of those modules is decided, the schedule is decided, and we have to make sure that we are on schedule so that there is zero impact to the final deliverable. So in this case, for the example that we are discussing, go to the next one, please. Schedule of course building, number of modules required, number of sessions, hours per week, how much hours, how do you decide the course, how do you decide the topic. You don't start with the last topic in the very first session, right? You start with the easy one for people to understand. Take them from what they have already learned. We know the prerequisite. So what they have learned, make them comfortable that okay, this is something that they can achieve easily, right? You decide time taken for each module. You have to make sure that each of these module or each of these lectures or sessions, they are logically closed. It should not happen that end of the session people don't understand anything. And the closure is important, and that is how you differentiate each course. You in the beginning itself you would know whether in 16 hours you'll be able to complete, or is it you'll require 16 weeks you'll be able to complete, you'll require more time, or you decide which topic to keep in, which topic you want to eliminate for now, and you just touch upon. If there is a practical session involved, then which are the topics which are more important, or is there something that you can cover in the practical session, right? On a regular basis. So with each module there is a practical course activity which is completed, and then it is complete in its own respect, each module, and then how can you build that practical on top of it. It should not be a complete course, complete practical project, right? So every time you do one part of it and then you build it into the second level, third level, fourth level, and make sure that the students are engaged and are able to complete the module correctly. Next one, please. Now we will talk about resource management. We are 15 minutes away. Resource management, and then we have quality. Okay. So resource management, as we know, what are the resources that are available for us, right? And a resource saved is resource earned, right? If you could save something without spending a lot of time, is there while you are planning it, can you foresee something? Can you prevent some burnout, right? Is there some contingency available, some safety net present? How can you do the same thing effectively? You should not be, for example, with respect to course, you should not be preparing a course material which only which you can explain it in 10 minutes, and you spend hours in building that course material. Then it might not be the best ROI, right? So what are the topics which are more important and effective for that course? That is what you will first start. Then start building upon the from different areas. How do you build upon reaching the actual objective of that course, explaining them bits and pieces, and then getting them to the big picture, right? So in this, how many professors in this case you'll with respect to project management, the biggest resource that we have is time. So if you have planned your time correctly, then it uh, all works well. And if you have the resources and with the right capabilities, then you know, okay, that you are in for a good output. Next one, please. Resource allocation, resource leveling. You don't resource forecasting. How do you make sure that, as I said, three professors and two cores, how do you make sure that the resource allocation is done correctly? Or maybe you distribute the requirement or in such a way so that everybody gets involved, not say one person is overloaded with those activities, right? And how do you enhance those activities? How do you make sure that everybody contributes, you get input from all of them? It normally happens that in also projects where somebody who is good in one technology get to work on some other technology, because that is the need of the hour, right? There is a requirement from the customer, then they are supposed to do that. But how do we make sure that he gets trained correctly, he has the right kind of knowledge, he has the right uh, build and understanding about what is expected from him, right? So resource leveling, resource forecasting, what is it that you require after this? You have completed phase 1 or next phase. When you start, what are the resources required? You should not be wasting your resource now, so which can be used in the next phase, right? So the resource time is very very important, very very crucial for the project. With respect to infra, curriculum design, more important is the staff. Next one, please. Staff resource requirement. Market. If you're doing a new course, then how do you market that course? Right. The books and training material that you will prepare. The curriculum design thing. The time availability of the lecturers, professors. You use the time between semesters to make sure that this is prepared. Is there a course material which has already been there which can be enhanced? Correct. I think the next one is yeah. Go to the next one, please. Quality management. What exactly is quality management? Uh, we end up saying this, yeah, इसका quality अच्छा नहीं है, quality खराब है, right? But what exactly do we mean by saying that? अरे इससे अच्छा तो वो quality था. This happens most of the time when you are at the cloth shop and then you just touch the fabric and say, oh इसका ये अच्छा नहीं है, ये rough है, ये बहुत पतला है, ये नहीं चलेगा. All that kind of comment. And the quality is a word that is being used, and most of us use it on a regular basis. But many times we don't understand what exactly it is. And quality is not something that you get over the counter. You have to prepare and plan for it, and then execute it in such a way so that the you achieve the desired quality, right? And this is important in everything that you do, whether it is presenting yourself, whether it is going from one place, any project that you talk about, right? Quality is important. Whether, in fact, preparing a dish, preparing a buffet, eh, quality is not only what looks good to your eyes. It's more than that, right? How do you achieve this quality on a longer duration? How do you, instead of getting quality by default, can you plan quality? That is an important topic all in itself in the project management activity. And so some of these, um, how do you ensure that quality assurance? How do you ensure quality control is there, and continuous improvement? How do you, for example, with respect to IT projects, they say, okay, when at every phase there is a phase gate, they make sure that it is tested enough. They make sure that the defects are identified, the defects are rectified, the defects are not repeated, right? They have a defect database which is shared with the developer or the programmer to make sure that such defects don't appear again. So quality control is enhanced, right? And then there is a regular activity where they do show and learn, where they give a demo on the products and make sure that everything is working fine. Okay, so these are some of the aspects with respect to quality that we track on a regular basis. Can we go to the next one, Azim bhai? Different views of quality. Adherence to specification, fit for use, customer view, customer experience. Customer experience. We all know when you talk about phone, the iPhone is the one which gives the best customer experience. There are other phones also coming up which are trying to not beat but get parallel with the Apple phones, right? But the moment you look at it, one feel of it, when you, oh, this is a good quality. अरे क्या quality है, क्या video quality है, क्या camera quality है. So every time there is a improvement in the number of MBs, we see that there is a better quality of photos and videos that we see, right? Next one, please. Now this is an important slide, but most of the time it is ignored. Quality is not free. There is a cost attached to it. You cannot get a better product by just praying for it. You have to plan it, work hard towards it, and then make sure that you execute the plan. Right? You have to. There are two parts to cost of quality: cost of conformance and cost of non-conformance. And cost of conformance has preventive and appraisal cost. Cost of NCs are internal failure cost, right? So before we actually deliver the product, there are many things that the organization does to make sure that the resource that is working on the product is trained enough, is trained well, he has all the skills to execute that activity. Then there are various inspection, testing, documentation being done, right, to ensure that there is no defect leakage, there is no defect that is passed on to the customer. Because once it passed on to the customer, you know that there will be a rework, right? So how do you minimize those rework? And if it fails on the customer side, then there are litigations involved. There are different, either you replace that product, that also requires issues. We have heard many of those car companies where the batteries are not working, they call back the cars and replace the batteries, right, even though they have a very stringent quality process, right? So these are things that are happening. So these are all related to the cost of quality that is involved. Can we go to the next one? This is just a representation of how prevention and correction, when you increase your effort in prevention and correction, the quality of a deliverable improves. Hmm. And with respect to quality, it is very important to know that anything that you want to improve, it has to be measured. If you cannot measure anything, you cannot improve anything. For example, if you think that, okay, you are taking 10 minutes to reach your place, if you don't know, if you have not measured, if you have not checked the time, start time and end time, then you will end up reaching there, but you will not know whether you have reached early or you have reached late. But if you measure it, if you say, okay, I left at maybe 8:10 and I reached at 8:20, then you know, okay, you took 10 minutes. Next time, okay, you took the other route and you reached there in 8 minutes, right? So unless you measure, you will not be able to clearly mention whether you are taking less time or more time. Okay? So in the quality phase, it is mentioned anything uh, that is measured. If you want to improve something, you have to measure it. And when you say measure it, that means there is a term called metrics. matrices. So for each of those elements, there has to be a different matrice that comes into play. Right? For example, with respect to schools, we say okay percentage. How many students are above 90%? How many students are above 80%? So this is how you try and measure or compare different schools, different universities, different classes, different courses, right? So that becomes a general measure, a yardstick. A student results. How many students attend the lecture? You know, you know how the quality of the lecture. You know how the interest level of the students. Right? That could be other reasons which are impacting the student attendance. But you know, okay, only 10 students attended. Maybe you have to do something to make sure that 20 attend, right? Or maybe 20 attended. Now you want to make sure that you improve more. But if you stop counting, then the anybody who asks you lecture हो रहा है हाँ हो रहा है कितने आए थे nobody knows, right? So you have to if you want to improve something you have to measure that, measure the current one, measure then identify what you are expecting to how you are expecting to improve and how you can achieve that. Can we go to the next one please? Metrics for course building. Yeah, so these are some of the metrics that we should these are just some of them where in respect to organization customer satisfaction is the best one where the customer gives the guidelines on how satisfied he was with respect to the work that we did, right? But otherwise a student result as I mentioned, external audit if that is done, competition exams, benchmarks, right? Every time the colleges or the schools improve their benchmark, isn't it? So these are some of the things that are used to improve the level of understanding or the course and how these can be improved. I think that is the that was the last slide. Can you go to the next one? Yeah. So we are over to the question and answer now. I hope I did not break up or I was audible enough and heard also. So any questions that we want to highlight? If I could answer them, I'll do that. If I cannot, then I'll find answers and let you know.
Yes, so we can have questions. This could be asked either in the chat section or you can simply unmute and ask your questions. Do you have any questions?
Uh,
Mr. Ashfaq, I have one question.
yeah.
Myself, Harun Bey. Uh, can you just guide us if we need to get some PMP certification to be a better project management implementer or project manager? Or any significance of having PMP certification in our life?
Okay. Okay. I'll just touch on that. Yeah. Um, there is a site called pmi.org, PMI, Project Management Institute.org. This is a 50-year-old organization. It's a NGO organization which is building working on the side of project management, and they have certifications for project management. They have certification for risk management, program management uh, in their kitty, and these are available for any general people to take it. In fact, for students, they have a CAPM as one of the certificates. And for professionals, if people who have worked on the professions, uh, depending on the experience, because it's a practitioner certificate, so it's called PMP, Project Management Practitioner Certificate. So these are available, and they are more popular in the Western side. There are other certifications which are on the European side, uh, which are used. And Scrum Manager is another with respect to Agile, because now PMP is also enhanced with the Agile module. So these are but what exactly these certification do? They will guide you on how to do things. But what we need to do is on our onus. We have to make sure that we follow them, on a regular basis, if we start preparing ourselves on a these are we know the five uh, uh, modules of project management, right? Initiation. Before you start any activity, just sit down and list down what is it that you are expecting, what are the challenges that are faced. If you just go through the charter document and put down and fill it, you will be better prepared to execute that same thing, right? So in fact, I would suggest that for audience who have kids at home, just plan or prepare their study tables before the exam or during the course. Okay, you have 10 chapters and you have each of these chapters have you have five subjects, and each of those chapters have maybe 10, sorry, you have five subjects and each of those subjects has 10 chapters, so makes it 50 chapters. So can we plan to how do, and your exam is starting maybe 20 days from now, so how much can you complete and when? Prepare a schedule for them. This is the easy chapter, maybe you can do that later. This is a difficult one, you'll require more time, right? And track this with your kids on a day-to-day basis. It will give them some onus about how they are performing, how much time they are taking, are they on schedule, are they not on schedule. Instead of what happens now is that on the exam we say okay 10 chapter tha हमने चार ही पढ़ा, पांच ही पढ़ा, पांच के एग्जाम देंगे. But if you are not planning to succeed, you are planning to fail, right? So how do we plan to succeed? 1 month before the exam, start preparing the kids. Okay, you have 10 chapters and you have to do this. Do it one chapter every day. You have more chapters. Maybe 1 hour is not enough. You have to study 2 hours. There is a chapter which is very difficult. You'll require more time. So all these planning has to be done and it has to be executed also, and monitor it and track on a day-to-day basis. Every day, if you monitor, okay, on a day-to-day basis, you monitor, okay, how many chapters have you completed? Okay, two chapters. You're supposed to complete four. So tomorrow you'll have to do more, or you'll have to spend more time, right? So they are planned. So at the end of the schedule, or when they get to the exam, instead of only doing 4 out of 10 chapters, they would have 10, 7 or 8 chapters. But at least there is a progress, right? If we do this on a day-to-day basis, if we imbibe this on our regular activities, involve our kids, do it yourself, plan your activities, execute the plan, monitor and track it, I'm sure we are going to succeed in all the activities that we do. And I have tried this with my kids last year, and it has, they are excited enough. Okay, अब ये भी update करो, मैंने ये भी कर दिया, ये भी कर दो, ये भी कर दो, which would not happen earlier, right? So these are so project management don't limit it only to the professionals, but also on a day-to-day basis. And then once you have executed for professionals, we do this on a regular basis. There are professional certificates, PMP certificates are present, right? PMI.org is going to help you. There is a PMI Mumbai chapter present. They do trainings, they do events. I was a part of that organization. I'm still a part volunteering with that organization. So Harun bhai, did I answer your question or took you on a ride?
No, no, I got the point. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any other
So
questions?
remember that PM.
Yeah. Ashfaq, you can continue. Sorry, I just stopped in the middle.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I think if you don't have any questions, because I can talk on this for length and
Yeah, in fact, I just got a direct message
yeah.
from one of the participants saying that it was a wonderful session, and the speaker, and 1 hour is not the time that we should look for these kind of sessions. It should be in a longer duration, because only then the topic
Correct.
could be covered properly. So no problem. We will plan for longer durations the next series, because we have
Yeah.
certain restrictions on.
Yeah. In fact, Nazim bhai, I should tell you that this is a 36 hours course.
Right.
Project management in itself is a 36 hours course, and if you ask me to pack it in 4 hours, then it's not going to cover everything,
That's right.
right? So this is just to know what you don't know. Now people can go forward, research on internet, go to pmi.org, download the topics and see how they can be made useful for themselves.
Great. So I think we don't have any more sessions. We could conclude this webinar. So thank you, Ashfaq bhai, for your time. Although you were very busy and you got some things in your plate today, But thank you for your time. It was really a great session. And to all the participants, thank you for joining. And we have the last webinar, which is scheduled next week. I'll share the details over email and chat. So I'll see you next week. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashfaq.
Thank you so much. Yeah.